Good morning, everyone. We are coming to you live via Facebook streaming, YouTube streaming, and also via Skype. Each one of you is welcome to this live streaming from our studios in Trinidad. Sutras of Vigyan Bhairav Tantra. Crying is the deepest therapy that transforms. Crying is the deepest therapy that transforms. Crying is a part of catharsis. The entire existence, inner or outer, is based on the union of the opposites. With the union of male and female in the outer realm, a new life comes into existence. With the union of inner man and inner woman, that is anima, animus, or Shiva and Shakti, you are born. With the union of interaction between North Pole and South Pole, magnetic field is developed. With the union of positive current and the negative current, illumination happens. Entire manifestation of electrical energy happens. So the union of the two is very important. And this is the process of transformation. So how crying could be a deepest therapy? Crying is feminine in nature, and the masculine in nature is the solar plexus, or the heat or the energy that comes in. It has to come from outside, then you can generate it within. For instance, there is cold. You are feeling cold, it is winter, snow is falling. When sun rays comes with that warmth or the heat comes in, and with the heat you feel a little comfortable. During winter, we in certain areas we like the sun rays. But this is the outside source of energy. But you can generate this energy within you. And there is a process, a hand gesture or yoga mudra that helps you to generate. You would have seen the mystics and the masters walking or living in the Himalayan mountains, and where there is a snow, and they do not feel cold. What had happened? They have generated the inner heat, and that has helped. In the same way, the crying is feminine and its opposite is the energy. So in yoga, it comes in a particular mudra called as Ling Mudra, connected with Shiva Lingam. You do it this way. This is the right hand, this is the left hand. You interlock the fingers together. That the right finger comes on top. The fingers are interlocked. The right finger is on top. Close the palms. Then fold the fingers to form the knuckles. Now this is the left thumb, this is the right thumb. So left thumb touches here, and the right thumb and the right index finger joins together around the left thumb. This forms a figure. This is, if it remains flexible, that means you are manipulative. You are not firm. It develops tremendous confidence in an individual. And if you do this here, this remains straight, unmoving. That means firmness in your decision. And if you sit down this way, it generates tremendous auric energy, auric field around you. It creates warmth in the body. It brings the self-confidence in an individual. And if you are suffering, if you have the cold weather, you sit down like this, you generate a certain amount of heat in you. That will help tremendously. I will speak on that subsequently. So first, this is important to generate, to understand. Make this mudra, sit down with this. You will start feeling little warmth within you. This is the heat is being generated in the body. Now, when I said crying, crying is the outcome of emotional disturbances. When there is emotional disturbance that are there almost in everybody's life, we interact on a day-to-day basis with objects and beings, persons, with parents, with employers, employees, wife and husband. In the absence of understanding, certain things are sorted out consciously, others go into the subconscious and unconscious layers. That becomes emotional disturbances. This becomes part of your memory. Your cooperation is needed. So for this, the crying becomes a catharsis. Your emotions that has become frozen like ice, first these need to be fluid-like, flowing. So for that, crying helps a lot. Crying comes like a catharsis. It helps the emotional disturbances, emotional chaos within us. It can be used, this is why it is therapeutic, and now in the West it is being used as primal therapy. With that comes primal scream as well of Abraham Maslow. Each one of us, including children, they have frustrations among them. This is bound to be. It is of necessity. The child wants something, but he cannot say what. Just recently I was told that by a mother that the children are unhappy why these things are taught in the school, why these things are not taught in the school. So they are unhappy about that situation. You do not have a conscious answer to this. So you try to do whatever you can do in your best possible manner. The children do not understand certain things. We do not have proper explanations for it. If a child's emotion, child is spontaneous. If his emotions are hurt, he immediately expresses it in the form of displeasure or wants to cry. But as you grow into life, many inhibitions or conditionings come onto you. Then you are told crying is feminine. You are a masculine man, you should not be crying. But we do not understand the significance, the therapeutic value of crying. So child is not allowed to cry. Child is doing some mischief and the mother asks him to do this or stop doing, doesn't listen. You give him a slap, his emotions are hurt, goes on crying. Then you want him to stop crying. The only thing you think you are doing something wise with the child, but you are damaging his system. How can a person suppress or stop his emotional disturbance or stop crying? He will simply do it by holding his breath. How it happens? Child is crying. You are telling him to stop crying. The child does. So this is the gesture that child learns naturally to hold his crying. And the emotional disturbance can only be suppressed through breath movement. So you do not breathe naturally and properly. You look at when the child is born, how he is breathing. He is breathing through the stomach. And that's the reason we put the child to lie on a baby to lie on the stomach. But slowly and slowly he is taught the things how to be, to live in life, social values, cultural values, the etiquettes, all these things are taught to him. It happened once during my late teens. I happened to be in a place living by my uncle. He has two children. The older one was not mischievous. The younger one was mischievous. Everyone was fed up of his mischiefs. So one day I asked him, why do you so much mischief when nobody likes it? They stop it. So he told me something which is very relevant. I still remember. He said, bro, if the children do not do the mischief, who else do you expect to do the mischief? A child's mischief is natural and spontaneous. The adults, grown-up people are also engaged in mischief, but that is a manipulative mischief. There is a difference between natural and spontaneous mischief and manipulative mischief. We like manipulative mischief. We create all kind of mischiefs to disturb this one or that one, but the child is innocent. It is not to disturb anybody, but as a part of his play. So in that situation, the mother, the baby is crying for the embrace of the mother or wants to suckle the mother, but the mother gives the child a pacifier and tries to distract him so that he may stop crying. We bribe the children by giving them gifts, toys. The mother can give him the milk, anything to distract him or console him that he should not cry. But crying is a deep necessity. If the child or even the grown up are allowed to cry, he will become fresh again. Because it is because of certain circumstance and situation which you did not understand, there is an emotional disturbance, and if this disturbance continues to accumulate into you, it becomes frozen. Then crying helps to make it fluid like. You would have observed that when you are crying, the crying happens in a particular way. The tears flow from the eyes. Something flows out of your nostril as well. The sound, the scream comes out of the vocal cord and it releases the chest area. If it is not, then one develops many breathing problems like asthma, shortness of breath. You cannot, by the time you grow up, you cannot breathe naturally, you cannot breathe properly, and the medical science says that there are 6,000 lobes, that is the technical term for holes in the chest area. In the process of growth, nearly 4,000, more than half, gets blocked. And because of that, you have the problem in breathing. Whenever there is an emotional disturbance, your breathing becomes short. And then out of that, heartaches and many other heart-related the problems arise. The heart problem is of two types. One is the physical, that can be revived. Then there is electrical, the energy, the current is not flowing there. This becomes difficult. So if the child is allowed to cry, scream naturally, then it becomes easier. So psychology has developed many therapies. Primal therapy, then people tend to get angry very fast, and those who get angry, if you observe their behavior, out of that the psychologists develop many therapies. If you observe a person eating, you will know what kind of person he or she is. Naturally, we are supposed to chew the food 32 times until it is liquefied, and then you swallow it. There are people who do not swallow, do not chew it properly until it gets liquefied. There are categories of the people who do not chew it at all, maybe just bigger pieces. They may just break it into 1 or 2 bites, and they swallow it. They can swallow the food in a very shortest while, shortest period of time. Others take a little time, but they do not chew it properly until the food becomes liquefied. While eating, our focus is on the sound of the social media network, messenger, WhatsApp, phone call. This is an occasion, moment when you need time with yourself. It concerns your health, and health is the wealth. So what you would have find the people who are angry, who have that approach, angry gesture, or their nature is full of anger, they will not be able to swallow the food. They do not chew the food. They just go on swallowing it. If you observe the behavior of the people who are eating in front of you, you will notice it. And then, as a part of the therapy, they go to the clinic and there they sit down and just do the gesture. So, chewing gesture as a therapy, this helps to develop saliva in the mouth and helps you a lot. There are other things that can be introduced to the person based on the individual situations. There are certain things. If we do the things that we naturally do, each one of us like to chew gums. Chewing gum is the name came out of the two acts. Chewing gum. It is made in such a way that its texture is such that you keep on chewing and chewing and chewing and nothing, it does not liquefy. It remains exactly like that. We do it by habit, not as a therapy. If you do it as a therapy against anger, it can help you. It can help to offset the anger, but we do it for when you go to the supermarkets, you are looking for chewing gum, for breath freshness, not as a therapy for anger. So crying is the deep necessity. If a child allowed to cry, then he can become fresh again. So that emotional disturbance that has become ice-like begins to melt. It has to melt first, then the energy that is generated in the solar plexus through another technique, it generates the heat in the body. Like this generates the heat in the body. The other yoga exercise of Kapalbhati, it activates the solar plexus. Or when you are doing the Islamic mantra, Allahu, Allah is not important in that. But we make Allah more significant, and who secondary importance is given. But who is more important? But if I ask you, a priest asks a Muslim to say who, he will not do it. But if he is asked Allahu as a zikr, he will do it. But it has 2 syllables. Allah is feminine, who is more active. So the moment you say, they create the sound of who, your solar plexus contracts and expands. In that two things happen. Number one, it generates the heat, and you are doing this Linga Mudra. This also generates the heat. So whatever the ice-like emotions melt with the heat, they evaporate and disappear in unknown oblivion, and you feel fresh or relaxed. Because whatsoever, where do you put this item to do? The ice you need to evaporate. You need a pot and you need a fire. So you put the ice into the water, into the pot to melt, it becomes water-like. Then the heat also helps to defrost the ice that is there. Then it evaporates and disappears. So you need a melting pot. Your melting pot is your mind. Mind is the storehouse of the emotions. It can also be used as the melting pot. In Zen, they call it mind is the melting pot, where all these things have to brew, and the solar plexus generates the heat. So what it does, it creates a vacuum there, and by nature vacuum can never remain. The moment a vacuum is created, the energy is pulled from the lower centers. It pulled from your sex center, the water center, and you feel relaxed. So using the sound of who, Allah is passive. Allah, who. When you say who, it is like a zarab is word used, that your zarab should be on the solar plexus. Then it activates that. There is contraction and expansion in that. It helps in clearing also the opening up some of the lobes in the chest area. You can breathe better. Then there are other breathing exercises which also help in expansion of the chest. So we do certain exercises in the gym, expanding the chest like this, or you can do it internally. All these things are necessary. If you are sitting and crying, maybe. If you start jumping and crying, then cry will become deeper. That's why if you are sitting, there will not be much bodily gestures. If you are sitting and crying, then maybe if you start jumping and crying, then cry will become deeper. If you lie down on the floor and start thrashing, maybe it will go even deeper. That's why you would have seen that we have used the word tantrums. When the child starts screaming, he can do, naturally he does not sit down and scream. He creates tantrums, bodily movements, moves here and there and all, then lie down on the floor and thrashes, moves. Try, help it along and enjoy it. And you will feel there are many ways in which you can help it along yourself. Enjoy trying to deepen it. And once it takes over you, you will not be needed. One of the technique that is used in Sufi path, or it can be used because it was invented by a Sufi called Jibar. Nobody knows his name. Jibar is the name of the place where this mystic belonged to. So he is known as Jibar. And the technique that he developed is known as gibberish. So he used to lie down on the floor under the open sky and looking at the sky, whatsoever used to come to his mind, he used to utter. You remember that when you are angry and you want to express your anger, you start fumbling. Words do not form properly. So he is using the sound. That fumbling is when the words are not forming properly, it is more like a sound. Sound is coming out of you. And just observe yourself when you are angry. You are angry when a piece is thrown into you, like somebody pressed the remote button and you start fumbling, anger start working on you. Have you ever thought of standing in front of the mirror and acting the anger and see how the words are forming? If you become conscious of it, you can never remain angry. Stand up in front of the mirror. When have you seen a person expressing anger, how the words fumble? What kind of gestures he manifests? What kind of face expressions he has? If you watch it yourself, you will realize that you see the others, but you have not seen fumbling, have not heard you fumbling, have not seen your the bodily gestures, you have not seen your face, how it becomes beautifully ugly. Observe it. Then you will decide that very moment that I have to do something so that I do not get angry. Enjoy trying to deepen it, and once it takes over, you will not be needed. Once it comes to the right source where energy is hidden, the purpose of all this is to tap the energy where the emotional disturbance are hidden, where your frustration is hidden, and the moment you touch the right source, the energy is released from there. This is known as the process of catharsis. Then you are not needed. You can flow naturally, spontaneously. Then it starts flowing spontaneously and you will be cleansed completely. If one does this therapy for 3 weeks to 3 months, he will be completely transformed. So I have given many dimensions of it. Out of this, screaming can by itself be a therapy, but you remember, this is one pole. Screaming is one pole. When our emotions are hurt, we cry. But we do not use as a therapy. Two things has to happen. As I said, emotional crying clears the nasal decongestion, and then the movement in the solar plexus, contraction and expansion, completes the other pole. And then these are the two masculine and feminine energies. When the masculine and feminine energies meet, there is calmness and silence. It goes deeper. That is why it is said when you are in a state of sex, it is the masculine and the feminine energies are at play. That time you forget the third pole, which is very important. your meditativeness, your relaxation, how many times you become relaxed and meditative during the act of your sex. This is, but you can use the same way, the crying and laughter. Laughter means when you are laughing, there is a contraction and expansion in your solar plexus. That's why both are interrelated to one another. Too much laughter leads to crying, and too much crying leads to laughter. You would have seen a mad person. He cries, and then he bursts into laughter. Symbol of madness. A person is laughing and ends up in crying. But you can unite these two poles as a part of therapy. Crying, laughter, and then silence, so that the two, or if the two, because this here cannot happen in your sex act, the union of the masculine and the feminine energies, number one, do not happen in a meditative state, and after that, both partners go to sleep, to rest. Why? Because it is the silence part. Passivity, where nothing, no one is active. But you can practice the same thing during your act of sex. One can become passive, the other remains aggressive. Then simultaneously you can change the role of being passive and active. The male energy can be passive, or the feminine energy can be aggressive, the active that time, or vice versa. And then afterwards, so in case of crying and laughter, you have to maintain the silence for the same amount of period that it deepens. The purpose of crying and laughter is served. It helped you in transformation. If you are crying alone, you may get relaxed for a little while. This is like you enter into sex, you get ejaculated, the energy is released, you feel happy for a certain period of time. Then again you get aroused. So nasal decongestion makes you, it is a temporary relief. The energy is released. You get the nasal ejaculation, energy is released, but it is not permanent. So if it is done meditatively in a different way, then what will happen? The nasal decongestion followed by laughter. First nasal decongestion, the ice has to melt, it has become fluid-like, flowing. Then the heat is generated through the solar plexus. Then it begins to evaporate. Then you watch what it is happening to you through these two. That is what meditativeness is. In the act of sex, one is passive, one partner, the other is active. But what happens? Both become active and both become passive at the same time. So the illumination does not happen. It is the union of active and passive that transforms, that creates the third pole, that creates the third effect. When the positive current merges with the negative current, neutralize one another, only then your bulb lights, there is illumination. Only then your electrical appliance get activated, becomes ready for use. So in the same way, as such as you are, a positive current energy or the passive or the negative energy, you are not useful. The usefulness comes when the third pole is developed. So that I will take it in the next session, how the inner union, the mysteries of the union of male and female. What are the mysteries of the union of male and female? The everything in existence, outer or inner, is based on the union of the opposite poles. 3 steps. First, the positive comes from this side, negative comes from this side, they unite. In magnet you can see the current flows from the magnetic charge flows from the north pole to south pole, and then magnetic field is created. In the spiritual field it is called auric field, aura, or the energy field, or the glow on your face that develops when the circuit is complete. In the bulb, when the circuit is complete, the bulb lights. It is the illumination, the auric field of the bulb is its illumination. The auric field, in case of an awakened one or a master, his positive and the negative poles are in harmony with one another. He uses them through the gestures, through the words, through the expressions, and he uses in a controlled manner. Sufis call this as tawajjuh, the energy field. This comes when the two opposite poles merge into one another, and then whatsoever flows, it may happen. Sometimes you are touched by that. Then a Mirza Ghalib composes something, or Allama Iqbal composes something, or Tulsidas composes something. But a mystic is 24 hours in that state of inner, and that state is known as inner harmony. Out of that, bliss overflows. Bliss, happiness has a home. Bliss is vagabond. It is homeless. It has no place to live. It, like a, does sunlight, the rays of sun have a home? They are wanderer, vagabond. They can go anywhere they want. Your bliss can manifest in any form that you want. It can manifest as words. It can become a musical composition. It can become your tawajjuh. It is the inner harm, and bliss is the fragrance of inner harmony. Bliss is the fragrance of the union of masculine and the feminine energies in you. Bliss is the illumination. You can utilize this illumination for healing, for cleaning up something. You take, if you want to clean a room, you use the light, you turn it on. When the light is turned on, the whole room gets illumined. You can clean the place. Or if there are certain corners where there is darkness and the light of the bulb is not reaching behind the cupboards, under the bed or those places, then you can focus the light there. So that time, during the spiritual transformation, if there is a particular disturbance in an individual, the master uses the torchlight of tawajjuh on that particular center. He throws the light. Tawajjuh on a particular center is to clear up that part. Otherwise, the whole light is lit. Nothing is needed. But that alone is not enough to clear the dark corners of your consciousness, dark corners of your being. That's why the masters focus their tawajjuh on the heart center. The whole thing is the energy has to move from the head, from there it is a stone like frozen, to the heart center, and it has to come from the below and from the top. And that's why the heart comes in between. The qalb comes between, and beyond the qalb is ruh. When the two aspects, suluk and qalb, suluk and nafs are united and qalb is born. That is said, the heart center is invoked, which Christians called it as sacred heart, not the biological heart. Sufis have given a 5-point nafs, the different stages of qalb nirofari, qalb sanovari, and 5 different aspects. Their location is 2 inches above the nipples, 2 inches below each nipple, and the third between the 2 nipples. That is the 5 aspects of qalb. It can evoke from any center. Then all the 5 aspects, 5 corners are illumined. Then nafs, then qalb is illumined. The word is used, qalb zakir hona. Zakir means come into light, is awakened. So we will continue in the session again, and when I will speak on the inner union, the mysteries of the inner union. The mysteries of union, I will take the outer union, which you know, and the inner union. What is more important and how one can, in the mysteries, how to attain to the inner union. Only this much for this morning. Until we meet again, take care and do have a pleasant day.